Barigani family, back once again is the Conscious Cultural Circle with another episode of the discussion and opinions of the Conscious Cultural Circle. Today we got another great show, and the topic today is going to be a home birth experience. So Queens, definitely line up. You definitely want to check this one out. We're going to share some great information and definitely share a great an experience from firsthand. So as always, we definitely do our invocation, invoking our ancestors. Okay, so let's take a moment to center ourselves and prepare ourselves to invoke our ancestors. In the presence of the all-powerful, all-knowing, all-present Creator, we revere you using your names as called upon by our ancestors. We pay homage to Ra and Ra'at.
Ashe.
We pay homage to Ola Damari, Ola Run, Ola Fi.
Ashe.
We pay homage to Nana Namewa and Nana Me.
Ashe.
We pay homage to our celestial ancestors, known in different cultures by different names, which our ancestors revered and called upon for guidance and assistance. To some, they are known as Netaru.
Ashe.
To some, they are known as Orishas.
Ashe.
To some, they are known as Obasun.
Ashe.
We give homage to our higher self and ask for continued guidance and alignment with our destinies. We pay homage to Ori.
Ashe.
We pay homage to Asar Aset.
Ashe.
We pay homage to Name.
Ashe.
In the presence of our ancestors who died during the Middle Passage in our Ma'afa, we pay homage to.
Ashe.
We give homage to our ancestors, those who we knew, those whose names that we know, and those whose names we have forgotten, but who are linked to by blood. We pay homage to Mama Baba.
Ashe.
We pay homage to Igun.
Ashe.
We pay homage to Nananum Nasamafu.
Ashe.
We pay homage to our national ancestors, the ones that researched and taught us who we are, who fought for the liberation, salvation, and unity of African people worldwide. We pay homage to Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey.
Ashe.
We pay homage to Harriet Tubman.
Ashe.
We pay homage to Shantiak Diop.
Ashe.
We pay homage to Patrice Lumumba.
Ashe.
And we pay homage to Queen Nzinga.
Ashe.
Ancestors, we invite you to be present in our midst and whisper your words of wisdom in our ears as we continue the work that you started, which brings us back to where we started. We begin with creation and we end with creation. Asante, Asante, Asante. And we all say, Ashe,
Ashe.
Ashe,
Ashe.
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 Today's topic was the home birth experience. And with our first episode of having an invited guest on, we're excited about this, and which is some of the stuff that we're going to do in the future. And you know, I'm definitely excited to bring on this queen, and so she can share her experience with the home birth. And this queen is someone I met in the community. My grandchild and her kids attend African Centered School together. We do performances together in the African culture. So she's part of the culture. She gives back to the culture. She's an entrepreneur. And, you know, so it's definitely a pleasure and welcome Queen Aisha, Dada Aisha. Welcome to our show.
Yes, welcome.
Peace, thank you. I appreciate it. I feel honored. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're excited to have you to share your experience. And you know, we can get right into it. And so you know, the topic of this show is the home birth experience, and we know and later we're going to go into some statistics of birth immortality rates and all of that stuff, and the effects. But your purpose here is just to share your experience and give us your thoughts and opinions on that experience versus the other experience which you had, which was the hospital birth, and So let's get into some of your thoughts. You just share your story. How this came about to have a home birth experience and all of that.
Definitely. Okay. Again, I thank you and appreciate the opportunity to share my story. And so I'll get right into it. And I do have the tendency to kind of dig a little deep. This was a great experience. So like I said, I'm honored to share and am glad to share this experience with you and for anyone else who wants to listen. Again, my name is Aisha, or Queen Aisha, as Brother Beck Unity has shared. This actually is my fourth pregnancy and my fourth child that I have. So I have 3 healthy sons, and then I have my fourth child, which was my home birth, which was a baby girl. My first 3 deliveries were actually at, the hospital, was in a traditional setting. And I didn't have any major complications or anything like that. I did have to have some interventions, i.e. Induction, because of, just doctor's recommendations and things like that. And then at one point with my last son, they actually had mentioned a possibility of an emergency C-section because of the length of time after the induction before he actually was coming. However, like I said, I didn't have any major complications. They all came natural. I didn't do, any of the extra medications, epidurals, any of that. I didn't have to end up having a C-section. So all in all, my experience in the traditional hospital setting was not negative in comparison to what some have to experience. Of course, there were things that I would have done differently, knowing different things. But overall, I'm grateful that, like I said, all of my children were healthy. I didn't have to go through some of those unnecessary measures that sometimes come to pass in that type of setting. So how did I come to doing a home birth then? So actually, it wasn't me who came up with this idea. It was actually my husband who brought it to my attention. Again, and just talking and, planning and saying, okay, we wanted to, again, try to have another child. That was something that came up in discussion. And so naturally, with anything new, you're a little bit reluctant, even though it's like, oh yes, it's been happening from way before we were here. What about before there were hospitals, and what were our ancestors doing? Even with all of that, it's still that fear factor. And I had to explain to him as well that even though I had 3 hospital births, it wasn't that I was comfortable necessarily with that. I mean, the whole concept, what women have to go through with your body, your mind, everything that you have to go through in, the pregnancy process, the development of the baby, and getting to the point of delivery, which is unknown. I mean, it's an unknown world. So, and every pregnancy is different. So it's not as if you say, oh, well, I've had one pregnancy, the second pregnancy or the third pregnancy or delivery in that case is going to be the same, because all of mine were very different. So I explained to him that even I remember when I had my first son, the anxiety that I experienced with that, and just really having to come to a place of peace on my own to say, look, mentally, I just had to, I don't know what it was, because I toured every hospital in the city trying to figure out, which hospital did I want to deliver. And then to come to find out that really wasn't my choice. I had to deliver at whatever hospital my doctor had rights to deliver to. So either 1, I would have to change my doctor, or 2, I would just have to deliver at whichever hospital that my doctor, had rights to deliver. So I did. I came to a point of peace where it was just like, okay, this is what it is. And, you know, I was in a place that I was comfortable in my mind and my body and my spirit. And, you know, at that point, the anxiety was gone. Of course, you know, then the labor came, but you know, that's that's for us women. But yes. So anyways, so at any rate, he brought it up. And of course, like I said, there was hesitation. One, with the process, and then two, he by trade is a paramedic, so his thought was not only to deliver at home but for us to do this by ourselves, which kind of brought a different layer of anxiety. So it was like, okay, now I've come to peace, and you know, doing research, and I started reaching out to some different sisters, started doing searching to find midwives here in the local area. And just to backtrack a little bit, when I had my first son, I don't remember how it came up, but I actually became interested in doulas. So when I was going to have him, even though I was going to deliver at the hospital, I wanted to have a doula present. So in researching that and that support for the mom during that process, I was like, wow, this is awesome. I really wanted to do it. And again, in the hospitals, there's only some hospitals allow doulas to be present. And then there's some where, again, depending on where you are, that's not even an option for you. The hospital that I was delivering at, that wasn't an option. There was only one hospital here locally that allowed doulas into the hospital at that time. That's a part of their program here. So backtrack. So again, he wanted to do the delivery here, was just me and him. And I just didn't get that far. And he's actually delivered several children in the ambulance. Like I said, as a paramedic, you never know what kind of situation you're going to encounter. So he had done that, but it's still, that was a big hump for me to get over. And not just that, it's not just about the delivery, it's about the whole pregnancy. So just going through that whole 9 to 10 month process of preparing, making sure your body is ready, the baby is okay. He didn't have that part of the training. So for me, that was a big part, that, okay, my mind is ready to do the home birth piece, but I wanted to have someone present that also had that expertise in that area so that I could be properly prepared and make sure the baby was good up until that point. So yeah, like I said, trying to find a midwife locally. There are some here, but the big thing was that there were no midwives of color, of African descent, here locally. So it was like, okay, do I feel comfortable with that? That really wasn't what I wanted. I didn't want that kind of experience. So I actually reached out to some other sisters, and they told me about some doulas in surrounding states, because they actually have some that travel. And so I spoke to this one sister in another state, and she did travel, but it was just really going to be difficult to kind of fine tune around the time that I was due for her to be able to come. So there was a conversation just about, would she make it? There was just a lot of specifics that we weren't able to necessarily work out. So I was a little bit hesitant about that. But I didn't give up. We still had it in the plan that we were going to try to move forward doing a home birth. I was still going to a traditional OB, just, for my regular checkups and testing and things like that, up until I found someone. And ironically, there were, I think, 3 of us that were all expecting around the same time. I was the last to be, I was the last of them. And so I was talking to one of the other sisters about, what they were going to do in terms of delivery. And, they were talking about doing like a birthing center, but they had talked to a midwife, but for them, that didn't fit for their situation. And again, that's something important too. You really need to find someone who knows what they're doing, who is experienced and can give you the best guidance, because it's not for everyone. And they need to look at all the specifics. and then make a decision. You have to be comfortable. And then, like I said, make sure that this person also knows what they're doing so that you're not putting yourself at any risk either. But at any rate, so she gave me the information for this midwife. And so I reached out to her, and I spoke with her, and she said she would meet with me and my husband. And then at that point, it was up to us to make a decision. And she came. She was a traveling midwife as well. She lives in another state, drove about almost 3.5 hours to come to just meet, to just tell me about what it is that she did, her fees, and just to give me the breakdown of, what it would potentially look like. And after meeting with her, I did look her up prior to her coming. She has her bio is, I showed it to her after the delivery. She was like, I didn't even know all this information was out there. And it's like over a page long of just her expertise in education. She's been actually practicing as a traditional midwife for almost 40 years. She's a herbalist. So we talked about diet, everything from A to Z. So in not only doing the research, but actually having her to come and sit and talk to me in my home, she said, you guys can take a day or however long you need and let me know. And I told her, I said, I'm sold, I'm ready to go. I'm comfortable. I don't have anything to think about. It was a yes for me. I said, unless my husband has some hesitation and we need to talk about it, I said, we can move forward. So, we both were on board, and we basically accepted her services that day. Like I said, first time meeting her. So that was awesome. She was just awesome. My turning point, and again, for a lot of people, I think they move towards natural births and things like that because of either an experience or a bad experience, or the statistics about the death rate of mothers and children, in the traditional setting, or the increased interventions. And that's something, in talking to the midwives about, and then again, just doing my research, like I said, I was blessed and that I didn't have to go through that stuff. But one of the things in talking to them is, like I said, just a lot of the unnecessary interventions. And although mine weren't extreme measures, like I said, for my last son, it was, okay, we have to induce, but if you don't deliver in a certain amount of time, then it's, oh, now we have to rush you into a cesarean. And it's like, that's not what I want. So I know one of the things that I always tell women, or just, families in general, is that you need to be, you need to know what it is that you want. Don't let any doctor or anyone rush you into anything, and definitely have a support person there, because the fear factor is crazy. Because just imagine, what you're going through mentally. You're in pain. There's just so many things going on, and then it's like, well, if you don't do this, then something traumatic is going to happen, and you have to make this split-second decision that may not be that critical at that moment, and you may really have time to do something different. And a lot of times, for me personally, I tell them that's a motivator. So when they said, look, if you don't do this by this time, we're going to do a C-section, I'm like, well, let's get going, because I'm not doing that. But that's me, so that for me was like, no. I had it in my mind that that's not what I wanted. And like I said, I was blessed to the fact that it didn't have to go that route, and he was fine. But they just a lot of unnecessary interventions, like I said. And a lot of times when they do that, that's when you have the issues. That's when the emergencies come into play. And so that was a big thing too for me, in deciding on this natural birth. It's just like, this is a natural process. And even in talking to the midwives, it's like, unless there's some medical reason or something else going on, the baby will come naturally. The baby will come when it's ready, and everything will be fine. And that's the truth. That other stuff, like I said, is really just a fear factor, and it's about money and a whole bunch of other things. So for me, like I said, I was grateful for both experiences. Like I said, grateful that I didn't have a bad experience, but also grateful that I did have the experience of having a home birth. So with all that being said, just to kind of bring it home to my personal experience, like I said, I did find this midwife. She's actually like in her 70s maybe. But if you would see her, this sister is like, I mean, she's traveling from state to state to different countries. I mean, she's on the road in her car and driving. You know, I remember one night, I thought I was going into labor, and it was 11:30 or something at night. And I'm like, man, I was hesitating. Should I call? And that's another great thing. I mean, she's like, look, once you're in that phase, call me. It doesn't matter what time, just call me. I'll answer. She has her phone right by her. So I called her and I'm talking to her and it's explaining what's going on. And I'm like, I'm not sure. And this is my fourth child we're talking about, not my first time. And it's like, you know, but I'm unsure. And so she said, well, I'm going to come. And so 11:30 at night, she packed up her car. She got here 3 hours later, but she came and she stayed. She stayed the night. And she said, look, I'll check you in the morning and just see how you're doing. But she came. You're not going to get that type of experience at the hospital. You're not going to have that type of experience. I'm sorry, y'all. With your OB. You can call them, but you're going to get an answering machine, or they may talk you through it or tell you to go to the hospital or something like that. But no, she came straight to my house in the comfort of my home. So that was awesome in itself. But like I said, she's traveling all over, and for her age, her strength, her stamina, her ability, her knowledge is just awesome. So as I talk about that, just in comparison, like I said, to the experience of having a traditional OB, you know, typically you'll go to your OB once a month. You'll meet for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. They'll check your vitals, they'll check the baby's heartbeat, and that was it. And then for me, I was in an office of 5, I think there was 5 delivering physicians. And so you have to meet with all of them, because when your delivery date comes, whoever's on call is who's going to deliver your baby. So of course, some naturally you have a better rapport with than others. And it's just not up to you. You know, whoever's there is who's going to deliver your baby. So that in itself can be unsettling at a time where you're going to be going through something like bringing another child or bringing a child into the world. You want to be as comfortable or as most comfortable as possible. And like I said, with that, you just don't know. It could be someone that doesn't make you feel at ease. And then you're going into this rushed setting, this cold setting, this unfamiliar setting, versus being in the comfort of your home. So with my experience, she did the same thing. She would come once a month up until I got closer. And then she would come weekly. And again, this lady is traveling from 3.5 hours away, and she would come once a month and then once a week. And we would spend hours. It wasn't a 10 or 15 minute situation. It was us building a bond, us becoming family, us really becoming one, so that you feel comfortable. She came into my home. We welcomed her into our home. She met my children, my husband, my family. And we spent hours every month getting to know each other. I could call her if I had any questions, any concerns. Like I said, we talked about what I was eating, if I was experiencing any outbreak, anything that came up, I could call her and talk to her about it. She had some natural instruments, you know, so we didn't have to worry about, she did blood pressure check, all of the things that you would get done in the office setting. She had the same tools to do right here in the home. So none of that stuff was an issue. So again, that relationship and that bond is priceless.
So what about the actual birth, and you know in the hospital they normally do some things. So for the audience of women that's actually thinking about having an experience, you have speak to that.
Mm-hmm. you're asking me specifically about, say that one more time. I know you said in the hospital.
Well,
and
no,
the
no.
actual
Your
birth
thing as
process.
far as the actual birth, the the after effect, what is there a difference of what takes place there versus your experience in the traditional setting?
So again, every situation is going to be very different. Of course, depending on the health and of yourself and the child and everything that's going on. But in terms of different ones, I think, like I said, the biggest thing is just not being in the comfort of your home. So, and really having your plan and being able to fill that plan in the most natural way possible. So I wanted to have a water birth. You could either do it in the tub, or I did it in my actual tub here in the home, or she actually had a traveling tub. So you could do that, but you could have if you want to have your child in your bed, you can have your child in your bed. If you want to have it on your floor, it's really up to you how you want to deliver your baby in the home. Again, it's however you feel most comfortable. So that's one of the big differences. Oh, I just lost my train of thought. And then what happened with me, like I said, traditionally, if you start to go past that week, or if they say you're overdue, they start to rush you and say you need to be induced and things like that. So, and again, as a mother, you get tired, you get anxious. Like I said, it's my fourth child. I thought she was going to come early and she was dragging, and I'm like, oh no. So, we talked about that. Let's be real. We talked about it. It's like, okay, what's going on? We're getting closer, So we talked about some natural things that I could do. So, just encouraging the walking, the exercise and things like that. Whereas in a hospital setting, if you go in, you staying in that bed until that baby comes. They don't encourage you to walk. They did not have me do anything. I literally, with my last son, like I said, that they were saying I would possibly have to have a cesarean, I laid in that bed from side to side for hours. It felt like almost all day long. So at any rate, in talking with her, she said, well, I think you're getting close. And she said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come if you don't go into labor. I think it was 3 days before my due date. She said, I'm going to come and I'm going to stay because I feel like you're getting close. So she came. And she came, bags packed, everything, prepared to stay up until I delivered. So we had a regimen. Every day we got up, we did walking, we went to dance class. We had different things that I ate, to kind of help. So we just did a bunch of things together to help the process naturally, of course, because like I said, this was a few days off of my due date anyway. So we weren't forcing anything because, again, you cannot. The baby is going to come when the baby is going to come. Because I remember we went to dance class, I think that Thursday night. I was due that Friday, and I worked. I worked that night, and I was like, I know this baby going to come. And I didn't feel a thing. When I tell you, this baby was just as calm as possible. And I was like, wow. So, you think you're doing something. It's like, no, not quite yet, mommy. And so, like I said, we did, we worked together every day, and we walked on the dam. And we walked in the heat. And we up and down the stairs, just a bunch of different things. But like I said, it was cool. Again, more bonding. And still just naturally allowing the process to take place. And so I remember the night we ate and we were talking, and we both said, we're tired, we're going to go ahead and lay down. And I told her, I remember I was standing at the sink in the kitchen doing something. And I said, you know what, I need to sit down. And something just felt different. And that was the night. So good thing we went to lay down. And that was maybe around 10 o'clock, and about 12:30, it was time. And so I walked into the other room, just as calm as could be. And I said, look, this is what's going on, I think, and she got up, got ready, came into my bedroom, and the process begun. And it just wasn't all that, packing up your children or rushing or thinking you're going to make it or your water breaking on the way. I've had all of this craziness before. So it was a much more calming and relaxing process that you just say, hey, look, this is what's going on. Let's go ahead and move to the next stage of what needs to be done. And so that's how it begun. Like I said, I planned to deliver in my tub. I did. I'm not gonna get into specifics.
Yeah, that's cool.
But
Yes.
You've given us more than enough. So I want to thank you so much for that experience. But And so I want to kind of go back and in Queens, y'all please, this is, I enjoy that you guys bring life into the world. So I really need you Queens and my daughters to chime in on this conversation and ask the question. But let me get this out before you guys jump in. And Dada is just sister in Swahili. Aisha. That's what Dada is, just sister in Swahili. So this is what stood out to me in your story. And going back to the beginning, you said that you visited all the hospitals in the city, but the ultimate selection choice came down to the doctor.
Correct.
That was something that stood out to me. You were doing your due diligence,
right?
But ultimately it came down to which hospital the doctor was associated with.
Correct.
But this is your birth. And the other thing I do want to say before I even started all that is, I think what gets downplayed is that the feminine principle, you sisters, you women, you guys bring life into the world. And because in this society, we it's like a conveyor belt. It's like we lose the sacredness of that from a spiritual standpoint. You lose the sacredness of what you guys, you bring life into the world. We use that sacredness. So that sacredness should be a personal experience. Correct. So that's kind of what you was going through is what your experience with the midwife was a personal experience.
Definitely.
Versus in a traditional setting, you're just another receipt that they're gonna bill for to get paid.
Yes. And as much money as we can get, we want to get it. Definitely.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. So
and we're gonna rush you out after that too.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. We got to get the bed ready for the next one.
We have to, because we have them waiting. And just real quick before you say that, so I didn't talk about that, but even after, so there's postpartum that the midwife does as well. And so she stayed, like I said, those 3 days prior to, and she would have come earlier if needed. Like I said, it's case by case as the mommy needs. And then she does postpartum, whereas then she stayed, it was either 3 or 4 days after. And she encourages that mommy does as least bit as possible. So, I mean, she's talking about if you're not lifting the baby, you go into the bathroom, that's it. I don't want you moving laundry baskets, changing, nothing. So she was doing, whether it been chores, bringing me food, massages. I mean, look, just the royal treatment right here in your home.
That's for you, and you should.
And it's needed because a lot of times we feel rushed to kind of jump back in and say, hey, I'm a mommy, I got to do this, I got to do that, but not realizing we need that time mentally, physically. We need that time to heal and to bond with our babies. And the other thing we did too was we kept the placenta attached and let it fall off naturally. So we did what they call a lotus birth. So we kept the umbilical cord attached to the placenta, and it was kept in a bowl, and it still took about 5, almost 10 days to come off. And then we were able to keep the placenta, which is something you don't even get to see in the hospital. I mean, everything is done so quick, fast, in a hurry. You don't see anything. And it wasn't the bright lights. I remember very vividly going into the bathroom, and I mean, the only thing that was in the room was candlelight. I mean, it was a very just soft, comfortable setting for myself and for the baby to come into. So I just wanted to throw that in before I forgot. But yeah, it was awesome. I tell you, she was awesome. The experience is awesome. I truly do.
Teach. So here's the other thing. So another thing that you said that stood out, and we're going to talk about this later when we kind of break down on our opinions of this. You said there were no African descent midwives. Wow, in this area. So that's going to lead to when we talk about the opportunities in this service field right here, the opportunity. So that if there's no African descent in this city, that means there's huge opportunities out there for our queens to want to participate in bringing life into this world from that perspective. So that was huge. That stood out to me. And then you said, this is my question. You said your king, he's suggesting it in his profession, King Khalid. Is there anything that says that he couldn't bring his seed into the world? Is there anything that said he couldn't?
You mean in terms of
Could
like
he,
legally or by state statute?
Yeah, by state statute.
So interestingly enough, you can do your own home birth.
Wow.
With you, and if you wanted to do it by yourself, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot of more technicalities around if there's a midwife. They need to be licensed in this state. They need to be recognized. They have to go through I think it's a nurse. You have to go through a certain line of training, whereas this individual was more traditional. So they didn't go into schooling. It was more of the traditional midwifery. So there's just certain specifications around that. But in terms of if you want to have a baby at home by yourself, you can. Like I said, there's a different process in terms of getting the birth certificate and things like that, and proving that this is your child and things of that nature. But no, we could have done it without, by ourselves, and that would have been fine.
Yeah. So just like I shared with you guys, this is the other thing. So what I heard was just a personal touch, a sacred touch, all of that. That's what I heard. But before I chime up and let my daughters jump in, like Queen Aisha said, we do a community dance class together. I do drumming. She does the dancing. And like I said, through her pregnancy, she was in there, she was killing it. Her and the baby, they shaking and moving in the African rhythms.
That's right.
Yeah, that's she never stopped coming, she was still. And then we actually did a performance. Was it right after? It was right after.
Yeah.
Probably. It wasn't long after, because I said, when can I go back?
Yeah. I think it was the Kwanzaa performance.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So she, right after the birth, she was right back to Kwanzaa performance, killing it. So
thank you.
Yeah, this is exciting, and I'm gonna let my daughters jump in, and I don't want to dominate the call because this is about.
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate your love and enthusiasm. I do.
Queen's daughters, jump in.
Well, she answered my question. I was going to ask about the postpartum and the afterbirth, because I saw some things about that.
Mm-hmm.
But what was that like? I mean, to see it, to versus them having whomever cut the cord and take it off or whatever. I don't know, just how was that? Was it, I don't know. I know it was an experience, but so you said it was gonna bolt. Did you get to see it like pulsate? I'm a visual person, so did you get to see the it pulsating or whatever? And
so yes, it was very different. So basically what happens is after the birth, after the baby comes, then you actually deliver the afterbirth. It's the process where it comes as well. And so it stayed attached. So instead of just, clamping it and clipping it, which that is an option if you do a home birth as well. That's not something that is unheard of, but you can also keep it attached. And so what she did was she had a bowl. We had like a glass bowl, and it was put in the bowl, and it was covered with different herbs and different natural things to preserve it. And then it stayed. So literally it was kind of difficult. I'm going to be honest. And the difficulty is depending on how long or how short the umbilical cord is on the baby, you have to keep that afterbirth or the placenta within a certain proximity of the baby. So in nursing and things like that and changing the baby really stayed with me a lot. Or it was like a dual person. Okay, come on, lift the bowl up so we can move the baby. I mean, I got to a point after the first couple of days where it's like, I can multitask, but you literally had to move the bowl with the baby. It stayed, and I do have pictures, but I'll share it with you. But yeah, so it was covered, so you did get to see it, but then you put it in the bowl, and then it's covered up until it actually it comes off on its own.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yes.
So yeah.
Why do we do that?
So initially, and I think that was just some of our lack of information at the time. So when we first did it, the thought behind it was that we wanted to continue the nutrients and going to the baby for as long as possible. So that was the thought behind initially keeping it together, keeping it attached. So after talking to them, and we didn't really talk to the midwife about it. We just kind of told her this is what we wanted to do. We didn't really ask her opinion so much. But afterwards, I did ask her how long it would continue. And she said it's really not that long, that the blood flow and the nutrients continue to the baby. It may have been a couple of hours, if that, but it's short term. So more so it's just to have it naturally fall off on its own instead of cutting it or anything like that. So it just does what it would naturally do if you don't cut it.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Did you bury it afterwards? What did you do with it?
So we are going to bury it. We have not yet. It's still sitting in my freezer, but I still have it. But the plan is to have it buried and put a tree, to bury it like underneath a tree or something like that. But we have not done that yet.
Okay.
Good morning. I do have a quick question about that. May I ask?
Yes.
Okay. Great, thank you. So there is a doula that I follow on Instagram, and she was actually showing some examples of the lotus birth. And what I found interesting is that some do last for like several days, if not longer. She has showed how it shriveled up and how they kept it really close to the baby. So when you were saying that you naturally let it fall off, are there other benefits to it staying on that long as far as like naturally?
So
like if it's over like 48 hours or so?
Not to my understanding. And so that once we really talked to her about it after the fact and realized that it really wasn't doing anything, it was like, well, do we want to do this? Because again, it's a lot. I mean, literally, you're moving the baby and this bowl. And you need to be careful because you don't want it to spill. I mean, you want it to stay. And then you don't want to pull it or anything like that because it's still attached to the baby's navel. And so we even asked, is it possible to cut it and clamp it at that time? But it really starts to harden and dry. And it feels almost like a branch. I mean, it's really, really, really brittle. And she didn't recommend that we did that. So at that point, it was like, you started the process, you kind of have to finish the process. So it's kind of one of those things where either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. But besides that, not to my knowledge, there aren't any other benefits. It's just more like a personal choice, whether you wanted to do it naturally or, like I said, if you want to just go ahead and remove it after the birth.
So pause right there. So Queen, do you realize what you guys are talking about right now at this moment? Do you realize most of our queens don't even know what you guys are talking about?
Right.
They don't even get to know that even exists. Just like you say, if you're in a traditional setting, they just cut, snap, take it off, boom, and then
you don't even see it.
Then they do all of the things that we create conspiracies around, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that's huge what you guys are describing right there and talking about. That's the value. Don't short play the value in what you guys are describing right now. Definitely. So continue. That's just I'm the moderator. I pull out.
Yeah. Yeah. And my other thing was your pain level. I know you said you didn't have to do a lot of the interventions before, and I remember out of my for birth, I think I only had one epidural, but it was the situation like you were talking about. They were saying, oh, you've been in labor this many hours, and if you don't have this child, we're going to have to do a cesarean. And I was like I do not want that, whatever I have to do. And that's when the epidural came in, and I was like, well, just give me that.
Okay.
But because I knew that's not what I wanted to do. But was it the breathing techniques that helped you? Was it the walking? That kind of thing. Once the that true pain starts kicking in.
Let me tell you. So like I said, everyone is so different. And so funny enough, after I was talking to the midwife and I said, we get caught up as mothers, so sometimes we get caught up and we're like, oh, you know, we've been pregnant for 9.5. Oh, it's 10 months. Lord, is this baby coming? And you tired, you exhausted, you can't sleep, you're just uncomfortable. You're like, I'm ready. And the baby's like, no, you're not. And I told her after, I said, you know what? I forgot. It's like in a split second, I was like, you know, you got to do some work for this baby to get here. It's not like you say I'm ready and oh, here it comes. It comes, but it's a process to get to the here it comes. And so it was funny you said that because like I said, she came in, it started about 12:30, the contraction started to pick up, and I was already well dilated before she came. I probably was already at 4 centimeters before that. She said, I'm going to come those 3 days out. So I was progressing pretty good anyway. And I mean, it happened like 12:30, I told her, and the contractions just, it's like once they started, they picked up. And then they picked up so fast, I forgot my water hadn't broke. And I'm like, oh, the baby's coming. Like, that's how it felt when my water broke. And I was like, wait a minute, that was just my water. And then once the water broke, it was like, oh, baby, we don't have any time to waste. Boom, boom, boom. And we were on the way to the tub. So it really wasn't time for anything else. She does have, so natural supplements that she has. So we did have some like natural stuff that I took, you know, to kind of help with more so just like easing some of the pain. And, you know, for everybody, it's a little bit different. She did a lot of natural massages. So she was massaging my back and things like that, where the contractions were coming in and things like that. I actually had my husband bring me to the tub, because let me tell you, when my water broke, the contractions went, it felt like I went from maybe 7 centimeters to 10 after my water broke. I mean, it literally felt like it went that fast. And I didn't think I was going to make it to the tub. And I'm like, look, I'm getting in the tub. Pick me up, let's go.
Right.
So we made it.
Yeah.
But
Great.
So Queen, so in some of our research, and we're going to continue to research, we talked about the birth mortality rates. And so far what I've seen is they're talking about health of the mother. So,
right.
you know, so that's something that gets, I don't think people take seriously. So what is your diet? You a vegetarian, vegan, or you a combination of?
Closer to vegan.
Okay.
We all have our vices, but pretty strict vegan.
Okay, so that's why my question was your preparation as far as your health and preparing for this birth. That was a major factor.
It is. And, you know, that's something, again, that I talked about with the midwife, and just even in comparison, one, she definitely, like, one of the things that she does in the beginning when she starts working with you is she wants to have you print out or give her your daily meals for a whole week, so she can see what kind of things you're eating, and she makes suggestions and things like that. Like I said, she's also a herbalist, and she's strictly plant-based. She doesn't make anybody, I mean, of course, what you eat is what you eat, and she'll work with you, but she is she's on a strict plant-based diet. And so, you know, and going to the doctor, that wasn't something that came up. I mean, like I said, you go in there, they check your blood pressure, they check your weight, they ask you if you have any issues. As long as there's nothing going on per se, or nothing, they're more reactive. So if something comes up, they'll react, but they're not preparing you to say, this is what you need to do to have a certain type of, you know, experience of pregnancy, or not just for you, but also for the baby, because whatever you're consuming, that's what the baby is getting as well. So that's just not something that comes up in your traditional.
So that's another point right there.
Huge.
So huge point, diet. And then we see in the research, they say part of that issue is because of diet. So, but you just said in a traditional setting, it's more reactive, a response versus a preventive, but your experience was preventive, and you was already living a vegan diet anyway. So, but that was huge. That's a huge factor in our community. Health, we know that. So that definitely can play a role into cutting those numbers down. In which, when we build on the show, then we'll go from there. So
any other questions?
I do have a question. You may have mentioned it before, but so when we talk about health and we talk about the contemporary as far as childbirth now, because I wouldn't consider it traditional at all. I think like the way that you've given birth is definitely traditional. What we're living in now is definitely not. But can you also talk about mothers that learned late in life? You know, they may be second, third, fourth time mothers that realize that the previous experiences were not, you know, the best experience. So say, for example, they've had cesareans. Just encouraging them that they can have vaginal birth, because even I was told that you may have to just go under the knife again. Can you speak on that?
Yeah. So I have not had the experience, but I do know a few people that had multiple cesareans because of that, where they were told that. And again, it's more so you're researching and you're studying and just talking to different people, not just talking to, you know, the people in the quote unquote traditional setting, because they will give you that quote unquote traditional answer. But I remember, like, even myself, my mother, I'm her second oldest. And back then, at the time, my older brother, he was cesarean. So, and we're like 12 months apart. So it was like, oh, you have to do this. But then after that, there was a gap between myself and my next sibling. And she was even able to have a vaginal. Her last two were vaginal and her first two were cesareans. So even we're talking about over 30 years ago that was happening. So if it was happening then, it definitely can happen now. But again, it's talking to people that are knowledgeable. And if, like I said, even as a midwife, making sure that they know their stuff too, because just because you're labeled or you have the documentation to say you're a midwife doesn't necessarily mean that you know. You know, you need to do your research on that individual as well. You need to feel comfortable. You need to make sure that they have the information and knowledge as well. And again, even to say that, you know, our plan was to deliver here at home, but in the case that there's something that came up outside of her not expertise, but something that needed that next level of care, saying, hey, we know that we're at a point now that we need to do that, and let's do that. But unless there is a serious complication, we can still work within the home birth setting. But yes, it's definitely possible. It definitely happens. And again, if you talking to the right person, they will guide you to that. Okay. So yes.
All right, so Queen, I thank you so much for your experience, your insight, firsthand knowledge. Oh man, everyone loves you on the panel. We'd love to have you back. And you know, and you're talking on this subject, but you could talk on some other subjects too, because you're an entrepreneur, you're a mover and shaker, so we can, you know, you can give us insight on some other things too, as far as being an entrepreneur also.
Definitely. So, and
yeah,
again, I appreciate it. And I hate to cut it, because I would look, any questions you all have, if you have anything else that comes up even afterwards, please let me know. I just kind of playing some stuff back to back today. So otherwise I would stay on here. My children are good and we could talk. But yeah, definitely. If you have any questions, just let me know and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you all have.
Okay, no doubt.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so
I appreciate
much.
you all.
Thank you.
And thank you, Brother Black Unity and Mama Ama. Try to use the right names. I appreciate you all thinking about me and inviting me. I appreciate
community,
you so
Queen.
All right.
All right.
Peace. Thank you all. Peace.